In this tutorial video, we are going to be learning our Rise of the Serpent undulation. Now, this is a spinal articulation that we begin to add into our yoga transitions. I love these types of movement because it encourages more recruitment. So we're not just isolating into our hamstrings, which does have a tendency to get a little worn out through our yoga practice, and instead we're working our entire back line through these transitions. All the way from the plantar fascia underneath our feet, up the back of the legs, over the low back, the erectors of the spine, even wrapping up the back of the neck, on top of the forehead to that little tensile fabric above your brow line. This is a really fun one to not only help you build this optimal balance strength, but also to give you that really beautiful liquid spine-like look to add into your flows. We're going to start in a standing position. From standing, typically in our vinyasas, things like our sun salutations, we do what's called a hip hinge. So we hinge at the hips and we fold all the way forward. Now, what we tend to do in this sort of transition is a lot of isolation. So it's a lot of isolation into the hamstrings, especially the most superior tie-ins, the most upper tie-ins. And it's also a lot on the low back and sacral region. Over time, this sort of repetitive movement can begin to wear parts out. So it's always good to have other things in our back pocket that we can add in to force a little bit more integration and balance. So this is the Rise of the Serpent. Rise of the Serpent happens going down as well as coming up. And I'll show you the different types of poses that we begin to add it into. So we start by stretching the arms up, as you typically do in your vinyasa. And instead of hinging at the hips, we're going to curl down, starting at the very top of our spine, the top of our body, moving all the way to the earth. So curling the fingers, and then the wrists, and then the elbows. It's almost like a crest of a wave. We're diving up and over, rounding down one vertebrae at a time. Slowly working to lengthen that entire back line. When we halfway lift, we uncoil halfway. When we fold back down, we curl back down. Now when we come up, we soften the knees, and it's the same thing. Push. And this is that Rise of the Serpent. Tailbone is curling under, and we're straightening out the spine one vertebrae at a time before sending the arms back up. Exhale, roll all the way down. Inhale, unfurl halfway. Exhale, reverse back down. Inhale, soften the knees, push, curl the tailbone under, send that ripple all the way up the spine. Arms come all the way up. And as I said earlier, there's other ways that we can add in this Rise of the Serpent transition to get that beautiful undulatory quality through our yoga transitions. One of the best ways that I like to add it in is through our warrior transitions. So let's say we're starting in a runner's lunge. Typically, when we're lifting up from a runner's lunge, it's another hip hinge. So my back leg is stiff, I'm hinging at the hips and the low back to come up. And this is another one. It's not an inherently bad transition, but over time we can begin to wear that transition out. So to come up instead, we can use that undulatory movement. We'll want to soften the back knee so that we can give our hips more space to move. And it's the same when we rise up through our forward fold. We curl the tailbone under and we peel up the spine one vertebrae at a time. Now when we come back down, it's the same idea. We soften the knees and it's that diving up and over to come down. I like to use this transition especially when I'm moving from a crescent warrior into a pyramid stretch. So say I curl all the way up. And then say we're diving down into our pyramid stretch. The two movements happen simultaneously of straightening out the legs and bending the spine forward. We straighten out the leg, we curl up and over. So working deep into that entire back line, not favoring our hypermobile spots, which we typically tend to do. Reversing, curling back up. Good. And we can use this serpent spine when we move from our downward facing dog to our high plank. So that's another very common hip and shoulder hinge. So I'm hinging at the hips, I'm hinging at the shoulders. Here's how it looks if we add that rise of the serpent spinal articulation instead. Releasing the back line, we would start by lifting our heels because we don't want our heels wedging down and kind of putting a pin in our back line. So I lift the heels and I'm adding some space into the bottom part of my back line. And then same thing, curl the tailbone under, one vertebrae at a time, we're rolling forward. Lift the heels, roll forward. Less hinging, more articulation and undulation.